skipped planning Father's Day after my husband braided mulch for Mother's Day memories. Now we're caught in his mom's drama. Our little boy is turning 1 late this summer, so this year marked my first Mother's Day and my husband's first Father's Day as parents. I wanted our first Mother's Day to be special in a simple way, no fancy presents or grand gestures. Just us, making memories as a family. I told my husband what I wanted. Between our son's morning and afternoon naps, we have about 4 hours of awake time. The zoo is only about half an hour away, and I figured if we left as soon as our son woke up and ate, we'd get a couple of good hours at the zoo, and if he got tired he could nap in the car on the way home. The previous weekend, I made sure we celebrated both my mom and my mother-in-law. We took his mom out to brunch on Saturday, my mom on Sunday, and I arranged gifts and flowers for each of them, celebrating their first Mother's Day as grandmothers. I made it clear in our family group chat that on the actual day, my husband and I would spend it with just our little family. With my Mills tendency to bulldoze her way into plans, clarity was necessary. I wanted no surprises, no confusion. Then, the Saturday before Mother's Day, my Phil texted my husband a picture of a massive delivery of mulch with gonna be a busy weekend. Message. Apparently, 300 bags of mulch had arrived for their extensive flower beds. That night, my Mill called my husband asking him to come over first thing Sunday morning to help move the mulch. Since we weren't going to the zoo until after our son's nap, she claimed my husband could come help for a couple of hours. She guilt-tripped him about how Phil might hurt himself if he did all the heavy lifting alone, insisted it was a small ask, just an hour or two. I could feel she was trying to hijack our day, but my husband brushed off my concerns, repeating his mother's assurances. Of course, most people can guess what unfolded. My husband left early in the morning, meaning no breakfast in bed, and I was up as usual with the baby. I tried to brush off my irritation, focused on enjoying time with my son, but the sting was there. When he went down for his morning nap, I texted my husband to start wrapping things up. 2 hours later, when our boy woke up, I called my husband and said we'd be ready as soon as he finished eating. My husband admitted it was taking longer than planned, but that he'd hurry. An hour and a half later, he still wasn't done, though he promised he was about to head home. But by then, the window had closed, the zoo was out of the question. A 15-20-minute drive from their house, and already our carefully timed plan was scrapped. I told my husband just to stay there and finish the job, not to bother coming back. He'd already missed every part of what I asked for. I could tell he realized how furious I was. And then, his mom called. "Since you're not going to the zoo, why don't you and the baby come over to hang out while the boys finish up?" She chirped. I couldn't hold back my bitterness. I told her I wasn't interested in spending my first Mother's Day with the people who'd just decided to ruin it for me. Instead, I stayed home, ordered a pizza, and lost myself in a Netflix binge, hardly the day I had imagined. When my husband got home, he was apologetic and full of regrets, asking how to make it up to me. I snapped that he could have started by not ruining the one day I'd asked for. I told him fine, he could spend Father's Day with his parents, that I'd take our son and celebrate Father's Day with my own family instead. Since then, my Mill's been throwing texts and calls at me, bland, short replies on my end. My husband's still apologizing, asking what he can do to fix things, but honestly, I don't have the energy. I know, it's only a day, you could celebrate any time, but this was my first Mother's Day. I didn't ask for diamonds. I barely asked for anything at all. The only hurdle, his inability to set boundaries with his mom. She doesn't consider anyone's feelings but her own. This past Saturday, my husband tried to smooth things over, asking if we were really going to my parents for Father's Day, and whether he could come too. I told him to do whatever he wanted, but reminded him maybe he should check in with his dad, given how little I'd done for the man. In the end, we both went to my parents, and honestly, it turned out to be a genuinely nice day. My dad insisted on grilling, of course, but the weather was perfect, and most of the day was spent lounging on the deck, playing with our little guy, catching a glimpse of what simply enjoying a day together feels like. I have no idea if my husband ended up doing anything for his own dad. His phone buzzed constantly, judging by the look on his face. I'm guessing it was his mom. She even sent me a passive-aggressive text, saying it was hurtful for me to spend the day with my family at the expense of my husband's. I shot back that she already got to spend Mother's Day with her baby boy, so it's only fair I enjoy Father's Day with my own family. I know my husband was disappointed not to be celebrated that day, but as I told him while we drove to my parents, I'm just matching his energy. I'll admit, I haven't done much to de-escalate the drama, but I haven't healed enough to try. It burns, knowing that again, he chose his mother's feelings over ours. This isn't the first time she's intruded, and I'm exhausted by it. She always demands her way, oversteps, and ignores everyone else's boundaries. I'm getting better at holding my own, keeping her at arm's length, but my husband just can't seem to do the same, no matter how much I need him to. Update 1. This weekend, my husband and I finally sat down and laid everything out on the table. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I told him just how incredibly upset and disappointed I was about the way both Mother's Day and Father's Day played out. I desperately wanted to celebrate him on Father's Day in the same way I hoped he would honor me on Mother's Day. He looked at me and admitted he knew he shouldn't have run to his parents' house on Mother's Day, but his mother had been pressuring him endlessly, telling him that if something happened to his dad, it would be his fault. He told me straight up that he knew he'd messed up and that he'd been terrified I was going to ask him for a divorce. Seeing him so direct, I just cut to the chase. I told him that I wasn't interested in staying married to him if this was how our life was going to play out. I explained to him that while I was angry about Mother's Day, that wasn't really the core issue, it was just the final straw. The real root of my frustration? His mother's behavior. She's been like this since before we were engaged, and it's only gotten worse. Over the years it's escalated to the point where I'm questioning what kind of marriage we even have. He needed to hear all of it, so I went through the list I'd put together, every time his mom crossed a line or ruined something important to us. For crying out loud, the woman called him twice a day during our honeymoon. Every morning she wanted our itinerary, and every evening she needed a recap. On top of that, the barrage of texts for photos, reminders that she missed him. I honestly don't know why I thought any of this was normal or okay. She tried to hijack our wedding, tried to make my pregnancy all about her, tried to take charge when we brought our son home. She's always inserting herself, always overstepping. I made it clear to him, I don't want a divorce right now, but if things don't change, I'd rather do it sooner while we can still be kind and cooperative. Because if things stay the same, I know I'll end up harboring so much anger and resentment that splitting up would become bitter, and I don't want that to affect our son. By this point, we were both emotional, crying, just completely wrung out. I told him I'd give him some time to figure out what he wants to do, but if I don't see real action and a continuing effort to prioritize me and our son, then I'll move forward with divorce. Change can't just be temporary, a promise that vanishes as soon as his mother demands his attention again. That's happened countless times before. If we're going to stay married, there have to be serious boundaries with his parents, no exceptions. I could see how stressed he was, totally freaked at the idea of putting his foot down with his parents. He said it feels like he's trapped, constantly pulled between me and his mother, both sides pressuring him with conflicting demands. I do feel for him, truly. But I can't tolerate this dynamic anymore. I know all hell is going to break loose with his parents when we establish real boundaries, but if we don't do it now, it'll only get harder later. So where we stand is this: I've told him what I need, clear, sustained change and boundaries, or I'm done. I'm not unreasonable for demanding this, right? Update 2. Last night, we put his mom on speaker and he actually did it. He told her, in his steady but about to crack voice, that things were changing. No more guilt trips, no more last-minute small asks. No more daily blow-by-blow of our lives. He said he was done being triangulated and that from now on, our little family gets priority. He told her we're taking a step back, he's starting therapy, and that if she tries to bulldoze, the call ends, the visit ends, the door stays closed. I sat next to him, hands shaking, and listened to her cycle, crying, rage, bargaining, then the classic "I don't even know who you are anymore." He said, "I'm a husband and a dad," and then he hung up. He slept like a rock for the first time in months. I didn't. I watched his phone blinking on the dresser until sunrise. By morning, she'd gone quiet. His dad texted him a thumbs up and a "call me later." Neutral on the surface, but it felt like someone cracked a window in a stuffy room. My husband took the day off and we drove to the zoo. No pomp, no desperate attempt at a do-over, just us. Our son clapped at the goats like they were celebrities. He fell asleep in the stroller with his fist wrapped around the string of a ridiculous zebra balloon, and my husband cried in the aviary, of all places. He whispered, "I'm sorry," into my hair, and that's the first time I believed him. On the way home, his mom's quiet turned into a group text blast. 8 paragraphs that started with "I'm worried about you" and ended with "she's isolating you." He put his phone face down on the counter and said nothing. I forwarded everything to an email folder labeled for therapy, and we made grilled cheese. I thought that was our big moment of the week. It wasn't. This afternoon, daycare called. Calm voice, the kind they use for bee stings and lost mittens. "Hi, just confirming, your mother-in-law isn't authorized for pickup, correct?" I felt that cold burn start behind my eyes. "Correct," I said, and I was out the door with my keys before she finished explaining that Grandma had shown up with a gift bag and a whole story about how I'd asked her to help. By the time I got there, they had her in the lobby, polite but firm, and she was doing the smile that doesn't move her eyes. She saw me and went straight for wounded. "I was just trying to help. You're overwhelmed. Everyone can see it." I stepped between her and the hallway and told her she needed to leave. She tried to look past me, tried to peer down the hall like our son might peek around a corner and make this okay. The director, who is 5 feet and pure steel, told her they would call the police if she didn't exit. For 1 second, the mask dropped and I saw it, fury, sharp enough to cut. Then she backed up, tossed the bag onto the floor like it burned her, and left. My husband got there 5 minutes later, gray-faced, shaking. He picked up the gift bag like it might explode and dumped it in the dumpster. He walked back inside and told the director to add a password to our account and to put his mother on the do not release list with a photo. He thanked them for protecting our family and then cried again, right there at the check-in desk, and I swear the director softened 2 inches. She handed me a tissue, patted his shoulder, and said, "You're doing the right thing." We got home and changed the locks. He didn't argue when I said it. He pulled the drill out like he'd been waiting for permission. While he worked, he told me his dad had called on his lunch break, asked if we were okay, and then quietly admitted he hadn't asked for help on Mother's Day at all. He'd told his wife he could handle it over a couple of weekends and she'd said, "It'll look bad if he doesn't come." He sounded tired. He asked to meet for coffee, just him and his son. No agenda. My husband said yes. Before dinner, he disabled location sharing with his parents. The dot winked out and the text started within 30 seconds. "Why is your location off? Is she making you hide from us?" He turned his phone off and helped me bathe our son, who slapped water at us until we were both soaked and laughing like idiots. Therapy is scheduled for next week, individual for him Wednesday, couples on Friday. He sent his mother a short message. "After today's stun at daycare, we're taking 2 weeks of no contact." He told her he loved her, that he'll talk to her when she's ready to respect our boundaries, and that any attempt to show up unannounced will not be let in. No explanation. No debate. He pressed send and put the phone on the mantle like it might sprout teeth. I don't know where this lands us long term. I do know that tonight, when our son woke up at 10 and needed a slow dance in the dark, my husband picked him up and swayed in the hallway and hummed the same out-of-tune song he always has. I leaned on the doorframe and watched them in the blue light and felt something in my chest unclench. Update 3. At 9:14 a.m., the doorbell lit up with 2 blue uniforms and the kind of careful posture that says they've done this before. "Welfare check," one of them said, eyes flicking from my face to the baby monitor and my hand to the toys scattered like confetti across the living room. My husband stepped forward so fast he almost tripped on the playmat. "Who called?" he asked, even though we all already knew. They were polite. Professional. They didn't try to come in. One of them peered over my shoulder at the monitor where our son was starfished in his crib, drooling onto a lovey that looks like a moth chewed through it. I said, "He's teething," because my mouth needed to say something normal. My husband showed them the no contact text he'd sent his mom after the daycare stunt. He offered to bring our son to the doorway if they needed to see him awake. They didn't. The older one gave us a card and said, "Document everything. If she shows up, call it in." When they left, my husband sat on the bottom stair like someone had pressed a button that loosened all his bones. "She called the police on us," he said, to the hallway. I sat down beside him and we stared at the closed door like it might blink. Our son woke up 40 minutes later, pink-cheeked and furious that the universe had once again betrayed him with a nap. And then the day kept going, because bottles need washing and garbage needs taking out, even when you feel like your house was just a stage set. He kept his coffee with his dad. I watched him walk into the diner through the big plate glass window while I sat in the parking lot with our son throwing puffs at me from the back seat like a benevolent dictator. When he came back, he had that look like someone had taken a heavy backpack off him and replaced it with a slightly less heavy backpack. "Dad didn't know," he said. "About the daycare. About the cops." He took a breath. He said he's sorry. He said he told her last night he won't be part of anything like that again. He stared at the steering wheel. He asked if he could still see our son sometimes. I told him yes. In public, for now. With me. He nodded like he expected that. Then he looked at me. He also said she's been reading things. Groups. Grandma writes. He said he tried to tell her to stop. We did baths early. Pajamas and a pretend picnic on the living room rug. My husband put his phone in a drawer and didn't flinch when it buzzed in there like a trapped insect. We cut up strawberries and our son mashed them into his hair like a hair product. For 5 minutes, the only sound in the world was him blowing raspberries and the soft, ridiculous noise of husband and wife laughter in a quiet house. At 8:22 p.m., my phone pinged with that unfamiliar, metallic little chime. Unknown air tag moving with you. It might as well have said, "Hi. I'm a ghost." My husband and I looked at each other and then started tearing the car apart in our driveway in our pajamas. We checked the diaper bag, the stroller, under the car seats, every pocket of every tote. Nothing. I checked the play yard, the bottom of the bouncer, the laundry basket because why not? My husband crawled under the SUV with a flashlight, gravel grinding into his knees. He reached up into the spare tire well and came down with a tiny white button taped to the underside with blue painter's tape. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he sat back on the asphalt and laughed once, sharp and empty. "Of course," he said. "Of course." We drove it straight to the precinct with the officer's card from the morning. They logged it, bagged it, asked if we wanted to file a report. "Yes," my husband said, and his voice didn't waver. The younger officer asked if we had any reason to believe someone else might have placed it. I said what I had started to say and then stopped, and my husband finished it for me. "My mother tried to pick up our son from daycare yesterday without authorization." The officer's eyebrows climbed gently and then lowered. He handed us a copy of the report and explained how to get a trespass notice served if it came to that. "We can swing by and let her know in person that she's not to come here," he said. "Sometimes that helps." I've never seen my husband's hands shake while he signed his own name. He wiped his face with the heel of his palm when we got back in the car and said, "I didn't think she'd." I don't know what I thought. I think I was still trying to believe there was a line she wouldn't cross. The AirTag's little hole where a key ring could go looked like an eye. It sat in its baggie on my lap like it could look back at us. Couples therapy was the next morning. We didn't bring the AirTag in like show and tell, but we might as well have. Our therapist, a woman with a soft sweater and dead on aim, listened to us untangle the last 48 hours and said, "Okay. So we stopped making your safety a negotiation." She had us write out a script. Not for her. For us. If she shows up, we call. If she sends gifts, we return to sender unopened or deliver to the precinct with the report number scribbled across the top. If anyone asks, we say, "We're taking a break and working on our marriage." And then, because she doesn't let things sit in abstract, she had my husband practice saying it out loud. He stumbled. He tried again. On the third try, he made it through without apologizing midway. On Monday, a certified letter came, layered with that green and white post office sticker that makes your stomach drop. He opened it at the counter with a butter knife. It started with a heavy heart, segued into legal options, and then went on for 2 full pages about grandparents' rights in a state we don't even live in. There was a photocopy of a printout with highlighted sections. He read it once and then again and then put it back in the envelope like you might put a spider outside with a cup. We called a family attorney. 1 hour, flat fee, over speaker at our dining table while our son tried to eat a coaster. She didn't laugh at us. She didn't tell us we were overreacting. She said, "She has no standing in your state while you two are together in parenting. If she escalates, call me. Start a paper trail, which you're already doing. Consider a formal no trespass notice. And breathe." It was ridiculous how good it felt to have a stranger with a law degree say breathe. That afternoon, my husband met his dad at the park. They sat on a bench while our son toddled in the baby swings, legs pumping like he was trying to take off. When they came back to us, my father-in-law kissed the top of our boy's head and said to me, "I'm proud of you." He slipped my husband a folded piece of paper and left. It was a list of dates and times. The calls. The showing up. The daycare. He'd made a log of what he knew. At the bottom he'd written, "I will not be used to get to you. I love you. Do what you have to do." We did the trespass notice. 2 officers knocked on my mother-in-law's door and served it. We know because she filmed herself on the porch, holding the paper, telling Facebook she couldn't even see her grandson because of me. People sent me screenshots I didn't ask for. I put them in the For Therapy folder and then I moved the folder into another folder called For Attorney and closed my laptop so hard the magnets clicked. Some moments still feel like our life and not a court transcript. Our son took 2 steps between the ottoman and my knees and then threw himself into me like a shot put. My husband whooped so loud the neighbor's dog answered back. We found the string from the zebra balloon under the couch and tied it to a wooden spoon and our son carried it around like a flag. My husband went to his individual session and came back with a kind of quiet I've never seen on him. He said, "I'm allowed to grieve the mother I wanted and still love the one I have," he told me, sitting cross-legged on the rug while he lined up blocks for our son to knock over. He said both can be true. Tonight, the house smelled like onions and butter. I made grilled cheese again because apparently that's my comfort food now, and my husband took a bite and closed his eyes like it was soup on a winter day. His phone lit on the counter with another unknown number and we watched it go to voicemail. He didn't pick it up to listen. He turned to me and said, "We should plan something for his birthday. Small. Just us." He said it like a prayer. I nodded. "Maybe the zoo," I said, and he put his head down on his arms and laughed into his sleeve until it turned into something else. "We're not fixed." But the doorbell rang tonight and it was the delivery guy with our groceries, not the police, and I almost cried with relief over a bag of apples. We are, at the very least, choosing our next right thing. And when the dark piles up at 10 p.m. and our son needs that slow dance in the hall, my husband gets there first. He hums. He sways. He does not check the door. He does not check his phone. He just holds our boy and lets the house be a house. Update 4. The knock hit at 10:37 a.m., the kind that's polite on purpose. A woman in a cardigan and flats held up a badge and said my son's name like she was trying it on. "We got a call," she said, voice even. "I'd like to come in if that's okay." It was. It had to be. She stood in our entryway and I could feel the air rearrange itself around her clipboard. I told her I was going to call my husband at work. He answered on the first ring and was already on his way before I finished the sentence. She didn't touch anything. She didn't sniff. She asked if there were any firearms in the home. No. Any history of domestic violence? No. What our son eats for breakfast: oatmeal with banana, which was currently cemented into a high chair crease like grout. She smiled once at a magnet photo of our son and an inflatable duck and then went back to business. We showed her the nursery, the crib with teeth marks on the rail where he gnaws like a beaver, the stack of clean diapers, the formula, the fruit pouch graveyard in the pantry. The pediatrician's folder was still out on the counter from his 9-month visit. I slid it across and it felt like handing her a passport. She made notes. She asked if anyone in the family might be upset with boundaries. My husband walked in with his tie askew and his eyes already glassy. He said his mother's full name quietly, like it might summon her. We gave the officer's card from the welfare check. The report number for the air tag. The daycare director's name. The trespass notice. She wrote those down too and tucked her pen into the spiral like she'd been here before, in this exact living room, just with different faces. "I'm not seeing any concerns," she said finally, measured. "You'll get something in the mail if we close it. In the meantime, if this continues, document everything you already are. And if she escalates to showing up again, call us. You're not overreacting. Malicious reports are a kind of violence, too. After she left, our house felt louder, like the refrigerator hum had turned itself up. I leaned my head on the cool fake stone of the kitchen counter and breathed into my own shoulder. My husband stared at the front door, then picked up his keys and said, "Attorney." We got the same calm voice on speaker at our dining table while our son made a fort out of Tupperware and a wooden spoon. "You have enough for a civil harassment petition," she said, just like that, as if we were asking about dry cleaning. "The air tag, the attempted pickup, the welfare call, CPS. Ask for a temporary order. It'll give you teeth on enforcement." She told us what line to stand in, what to bring, how to phrase it so we weren't writing a memoir in the margin. We packed snacks and the police reports and our baby and drove to a courthouse that smelled like old paper and floor wax. Fluorescent lights flattened everybody into a kind of gray. We sat on a metal bench and filled in bubbles: stalking, harassment, attempted interference with childcare. I wrote his mother's name and felt like my pen might skitter off the form and scratch it into the plastic. A clerk with rings on every finger glanced through our stack and circled 2 lines. "He's the petitioner?" she asked. He nodded. She stamped something with a thunk that I felt between my ribs. 20 minutes later, a judge put on reading glasses and listened to my husband say the words out loud in a tiny room where nothing echoed, and then he signed an order that said what my husband had been trying to say with his spine for 2 weeks: stop. As we stepped into the hallway, my phone vibrated with an unknown number. "Hey, honey, it's Marla. From church. I don't go to her church. Your mother-in-law isn't well. She's at the hospital. You should really," my husband's father answered on the second ring. "Panic attack," he said, tired, like the words had worn grooves in his mouth. "They're keeping her for observation because her heart rate was up. She's not dying. I'm with her, you don't need to come." He paused. "She gave Marla your number. I told her to stop. We took the baby to the splash pad anyway because the son had the ridiculous good manners to be perfect, and we had a bag of melon already cut, and if a panic attack is supposed to pull us back into orbit, we were going to drift." Our son stood in the fringe of the spray and held his arms out like a tiny conductor. He touched the water with one finger and then shrieked like he'd invented it. My husband stood in his shoes and socks and let himself be soaked by a rogue arcing jet while our son slapped the puddles and laughed hard enough that 2 other toddlers turned to look at him like, "Who is this new planet?" We found a voicemail later from a number that traced to the hospital switchboard. "This is a courtesy call letting you know, Mill has been admitted. She requests visitors." My husband pressed delete without hesitating and then stared at his finger as if it had done a magic trick. He texted his dad, "Hope she feels better. We just got a temporary order. Please don't give anyone our address. The sheriff served her before dinner." We didn't see it happen, but someone sent a video we didn't ask for of her on her front stoop again, this time tears and Bible verses braided into a rope. I didn't watch it. I dragged the file into the For Attorney folder by its name and let the icon slide across the screen like it was leaving a mark I couldn't see. My husband saw his therapist the next morning and comes home with an assignment. A letter he's not going to send. He sits on the end of our bed and reads it to me anyway. "Dear Mom," it starts, and my chest already hurts. He tells the paper about the way his phone felt like an extra hand he couldn't put down. He tells it about being 6 and knowing which cough would make her stand up and which one would make her say, "You're fine." He writes, "I thought love meant answering you first." He writes, "I'm tired of being your good boy," like it's a swear. He writes, "I'm choosing my family." By the time he gets to the end, the page is soft where his thumb has been rubbing the corner in circles. He folds it into thirds and tucks it under the tray of our bedside table like it's a seed. At 2:13 p.m., daycare texted, "Just an FYI, we received a call from your mother-in-law's cousin asking for your son's schedule. We did not share. We will not share. We've added a note to the account." Our director's reply included a winking emoji with fangs, which made me love her more than is reasonable for someone who once told me my son ate mulch. My husband walked in, opened the drawer with his phone in it, and put it in the freezer for 5 minutes like he was resetting his nervous system. Maybe he was. That night, the doorbell camera lit up with a shape on our porch. Not her, my father-in-law, hands in his pockets, eyes like someone had turned the brightness down. He didn't ring. He set a manila envelope against the welcome mat and stepped back until the camera could see his whole face. "I'm not knocking," he said, to the dark. "I just want you to have this." When he left, I opened the door and he was already down the walkway, back hunched the way a person bends when they put themselves between 2 fires. Inside the envelope, a photocopy of his own appointment confirmation, therapist, Thursday at 3. A copy of his statement for the temporary order hearing, notarized, saying he witnessed the attempted daycare pickup and had not asked his son to come on Mother's Day. A photograph of my husband at 12 with a crooked bowl cut and knee scabbed to hell, standing in a creek holding a frog like a Fabergé egg. A key with a blue tag. On the tag, in his block letters, garage. I changed the code. "She won't be able to get in without me. I will not be part of any plan that involves tricking you." Not 5 minutes later, my phone pinged, unknown number, local. I let it go. The voicemail transcription popped up. "You got him to turn on his own mother. You think you've won? You will be sorry. No name." The kind of voice that sounds brave when it's alone with a bathroom mirror. We forwarded it to the officer on the case with a little note, harassment call. Unknown number. The reply came back with 3 words that made my shoulders drop an inch. We've got it. On the good side of the ledger, our son pointed at the cat and said something that was definitely not mama or dada. It was dad. Which, yes, is the cat. He spent 15 full minutes calling everything in the house dat with deep conviction. Lamp? Dat. Banana? Dat. His father's face? Dat. I cried laughing into a dish towel while my husband lay on the rug and let our kid drive a truck over his cheekbones like terrain. When your world gets smaller, sometimes it gets brighter, too. We went back to the zoo in the morning because we are apparently those people now. No ceremony. Just an hour between naps, an iced coffee that tasted like not enough sleep, and a toddler who pressed his entire forehead to the glass of the penguin exhibit like he was going to osmosis them into our living room. My husband brushed my shoulder with his knuckles at the sea lions and I let the smallness of that be enough. On the way out, he said, without looking at me, I'm not going to the hospital. I said, I know. He nodded once, a sentence, and we turned left toward the parking lot. The CPS letter came faster than I thought it would. Unfounded, black ink on white paper, our last name spelled right for once. I held it up to the kitchen window and the sunlight made the watermark look like a little shield. I slid it into our file and then made grilled cheese again because at this point I'm superstitious. Tonight, we taped a calendar page to the fridge and wrote our son's birthday in thick marker. No theme. No smash cake theatrics for an audience of 30. Just a morning at the park, a cupcake, maybe the goats if the weather is kind. My husband traced the outline of the day with his finger. I'll take off work, he said, as if that had ever been in question. He kissed the top of our boy's head as he toddled by, wooden spoon in one hand, zebra string flag in the other, and our son said, with enormous authority, "Dat," and pointed at the balloon. We are still in the thick of it. There's a court date on our calendar under the one with the cupcake. There's a list on the inside of our pantry door that says who to call and what to say. There's a letter under the tray in our nightstand that my husband doesn't have to send to be true, and there is a little boy who leans heavy against my shoulder in the dark at 10 p.m. and lets me slow dance him into sleep while his father hums off key and checks nothing but whether we're swaying in the same time.